This morning, how did Austin develop so many problems? Affordability, city bureaucracy, and a shortage of police.
Was it a mistake for the city council to cut the police department's budget by a third 2 years ago?
Mayoral candidate Kirk Watson in a runoff next week with Celia Israel.
How did the bureaucracy grow so large and Austin become a great city, but also the most expensive city to live in?
The future of Austin is at stake. This morning, we questioned the two Democrats running for mayor to turn it around, just as Texas lawmakers propose their own solutions for the capital city. Plus, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick laid out his legislative priorities. At the top of the list, property taxes. Again, we'll take a closer look at his idea this time. And Houston's boil water notice comes after one in East Texas and another in Odessa. Are these isolated incidents or signs of bigger infrastructure issues in our state?
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Jason Whiteley, and lots happening politically over the last few days. Some of the stories we really didn't expect. One of them is Republicans. You know, they often criticize President Biden for not doing enough to support oil and gas in his administration, but his administration just approved what will be the nation's largest seaport terminal. Now, this is simply a facility for oil and gas companies to fill tankers and export their products overseas. This specific terminal will lie 30 miles off the coast of Freeport in Brazoria County, just down from Galveston. Progressive Democrats and Biden's own party, they criticized him for it, but 3 other terminals already proposed. We watched something unusual in the U.S. Senate the other day. Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders on the same side of a fight. Cruz was one of the Republicans who supported Sanders' bill to get paid sick leave for all rail workers. Cruz said he backed it because he said the GOP is becoming the party of blue-collar workers. That bill did not pass, but it is encouraging to see lawmakers put country over party. And keep an eye on Dallas City Council. It's talking about banning all gas-powered lawn equipment. We're talking about things like leaf blowers, weed eaters, and even lawnmowers. The city says doing so will reduce noise and clean up the air, but it will also cost about $30 million for companies and for citizens to buy battery-operated machines to replace all this. Dallas hired a consultant to figure it out. The idea is to fully implement this in about 5 years. Texas lawmakers return to Austin next month, and they are already talking about ways to fix our capital city. One Republican legislator wants to dissolve the city altogether and create a district of Austin that the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House would control. But Austin voters will get the first say in their future. Next week, they will elect a brand new mayor, and that person is going to face mounting problems. Both candidates in that December 13th runoff, they are on the program with us this morning. Former State Senator Kirk Watson and State Rep Celia Israel. And we are beginning alphabetically with Ms. Israel. Representative Israel, thank you for the time. A lot of people I'm hearing say you and your opponent are a lot alike. You're both Democrats. Your platforms aren't too far apart. How are you most different from Kirk Watson?
Well, I'm a chick and longtime legislator. I'm a working class Texas legislator. I've been in the legislature for 9 years, and my policies are focused on the working women and men of Austin, Texas, who are going through some really difficult times right now. So I would say that there's a big distinction between our policies.
Listen, Mayor, I don't need to tell you, but the next mayor of Austin is going to face some significant issues. Some would say existential issues that the city might be facing. In your opinion, what is the single most pressing one right now?
Well, it underlies everything. The entire reason that I'm running is because the housing crisis has reached critical levels. The median home price in Austin, Texas is hovering around $550,000. And when I saw what was happening in the market last year, and I'm a residential realtor, as I was helping my clients, I couldn't sleep at night because I knew that people were hurting. And some people have said, well, why run for mayor? You know, what can you do? There is a lot of authority in our local governments where we can wrap our hands around this, lock arms, and say, this is not my Austin.
Representative, the city is part of the problem, as you well know, too. The development
Yeah.
fees and the city of Austin are through the roof. Austin
Yeah,
has the highest fees for building permits, the fees to actually tap into the water system and the sewer system, the highest fees in the entire state. People who live in the eventual housing that gets built will have to pay for these fees. Developers don't have to
yeah.
deal with it, and that might contribute to it. What's your plan to actually get those fees down?
You're absolutely right. I've been in the development space as a realtor. We have city assets and unused real estate that could be converted into housing. Um, Austin ISD was 800 teachers short when they started school this year, and a large factor was affordability, especially a younger teacher who's just
Right.
starting out couldn't afford to live here. So this is part of the expense of living in Austin, and it's our own downfall for not planning appropriately for growth.
But how did Austin get to this point? I mean, the city is clearly part of it, with those exorbitant fees. But how did the bureaucracy grow so large and Austin become a great city, but also the most expensive city to live in?
Yet you're pointing to you're making my case on the campaign trail, and that these issues did not happen overnight. Generations ago, Austin said, we don't want those kind of people living here. So we cut down dramatically on the number of fourplexes, on the number of sixplexes. We feed our way out of a situation. We're evaluating new apartment complexes and fourplexes in the same way. It takes years to get things done. Our Austin Energy is in a bad cultural place. They don't respond well when folks are trying to build new and creative housing. So whether you are an unhoused person who's living in a tent, or you're a young professional just making your way here, there's not enough housing options in Austin. And I'm been tested by fire at the Texas State Legislature, and I'm ready to bring people together. As I say often, I'm not giving up a seat in the legislature to do more task forces. This is an urgent situation.
Representative, I want to ask you about the Austin Police Department. It's badly understaffed, 911
Yeah.
call takers hanging up on people.
Yeah.
Cadet classes still remain on hold there in the city. The number of job vacancies is up. If elected, how do you immediately fix this problem? Because at the end of the day, more than anything, a city has to be safe.
No, you're absolutely right. It's our number one job. You should feel safe regardless of zip code, regardless of status. We need a fully funded, fully supported police force for the 11th. Now we're the 11th largest city in the country. And that police force needs additional supports in this day and age. They need mental and social work support. I have done ride-alongs with our police department. And as we respect our police officers, they also need the tools to do the job. And we need to move quickly on that, whether it's pay, whether it's support, whether it's training. We cannot back off of that commitment. But I will say this is across different professions as well. It's hurting our economy when you don't have line chefs, you don't have 911 call operators, you don't have engineers who can do the work, teachers, bus drivers. This is a crisis. This is a workforce crisis, and it is also impacting our 911 call center and our police force. There's no doubt about it.
Representative, good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Senator, it's good to see you again. You've been mayor before. You oversaw Austin's huge boom in the late 1990s when you were serving from 97 to 2001. Why in the world do you want this job again? Why not just take your record and move on down the road and let history judge you for what you already did?
Well, because of that, the service before. I love this city. Liz and I have been in this town since 1981. I love the city and I love the people. And the fact of the matter is that City Hall is not taking care of the basics the way it ought to. There doesn't seem to be any immediacy to taking care of the kinds of things that if we don't take care of them, it puts this city at risk, this wonderful city at risk. And I have the proven background and the proven results to show that we can address those things.
Do you think the city is on the wrong track right now or the right track right now?
No, I believe the city right now is on the wrong track. And I think it's whether it's housing and affordability or traffic, whether it's crime or a variety of other things, we're not addressing things the way we need to address them, being able to get the big things done that a big city needs to get done, and doing it with the urgency that we require.
Senator, let me ask you about affordability. That remains a significant issue there. But getting ready for the interview, I was looking into it a little deeper and discovered that the city of Austin's fees, the fees it charges to build new housing, from building permit fees to tapping in fees into the water system and sewer system, they are exorbitant in the city, and they're far outpace all the other major cities. And that cost obviously is passed on to people who live in these places. And it's also a deterrent to developers, I'm kind of hearing. What's your plan in order to get rid of these fees, or at least reduce these fees, in order to get more affordable housing in the city?
But one of the things that I've called for specifically in this race is for us to reduce by at least 50% some of the development fees that we're charging for the kinds of things that we want to have happen. If we want to have more housing on the ground, more affordable housing on the ground, why are we stepping over our own feet by adding to the expense of that? So that's one of the things that I've called for. The other thing I've called for, I served on the Texas Sunset Commission for many years while I was in the Texas Senate. I've called for a complete sunset process of our development services department. Let's look at it from top to bottom, scrub it, get best practices, because time is also money. And when it takes so long to get a permit in this town, it adds to the cost that, as you point out, then gets passed on.
Let's talk about policing for a moment. The city's police department, Austin PD, is badly understaffed. You have 911 call takers hanging up on people. Cadet classes still remain on hold, to my knowledge. Job vacancies are up there. If elected, how in the world would you address this issue specifically?
Well, first of all, let's be clear that everybody in this town ought to be safe and ought to feel safe. And we can have a just policing system that meets our values by doing the right thing when it comes to recruitment, training, supervision, and then having a transparent accountability system. But we need to be fully staffed. It's not a binary choice. It's being made a binary choice. It doesn't have to be. One of the things we have to do is we have to get a contract with the police union. One of the key things is that people are seeing that we don't have that contract, and that's one of the first, or maybe the top three things that we need to do. Second is we need to retain police officers. Part of that will come if we get a contract, but also we may need to put some money into retaining those that are already here. And then our recruitment and getting cadet classes, even maybe doubling up on cadet classes, is going to happen. Our place for training everybody, we may need to be borrowing some places.
Was it a mistake for the city council to cut the police department's budget by a third 2 years ago?
Well, what it was a mistake to put us in a situation where we're now actually, with attrition, seeing a decline even as we have cadet classes. You can't put a city in a position where the police force is so badly understaffed that is what you're talking about. People are hanging up on 911. We're behind what we ought to be in terms of answering calls on patrol. And so we've got to get that. We've got to get fully staffed.
Senator, good luck to you. We appreciate the time.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
For our Austin viewers, you can see Watson and Israel face to face in a debate. It is tomorrow night, December the 5th at 6 p.m. And you can watch it live on KVUE in Austin or see it streamed at kvue.com. Coming up next here, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick laid out his legislative priorities for next month's legislative session. We'll look at how they align with what the governor wants and what the Speaker of the House is proposing. And property taxes, early plans for the legislature is to lower them. Something is likely to pass, but what? Inside Texas Politics, back in a moment. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. A little more than a month now until Texas lawmakers return to Austin. The legislature reconvenes January the 10th, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick laid out his priorities, the issues he wants to address. But this morning, we're looking at how Patrick's ideas align with what Governor Abbott wants and what House Speaker Dade Phelan is proposing. The common priorities there, those are the ones likely to become law. Ian Mitra is the senior managing editor for the Texas Tribune. He is in Austin as always. Ian, good to see you. Where do the priorities actually come together, and what do you think that tells us about what we'll see come January?
Well, I think the first place you have to start with is the fact that Texas is projected to have a $27 billion kind of budget surplus. And the discussions will be kind of what to do with that money. And so, the lieutenant governor, the governor, and even Speaker Phelan have talked about the aspects of property tax cuts. With the lieutenant governor in particular speaking this most recently about prioritizing those cuts. And I think the debate will be kind of how much and how far that will go. The governor has talked about maybe using as much as half of that to do. Right. There's constitutional spending limit concerns, and the Speaker of the House has also talked about aspects of roads and infrastructure. So those will be the kind of like the things that are debated as we kind of go through the session next year.
I want you to briefly hit a story in the Texas Tribune the other day. Houston made national news for its boil water notice. The Trib, though, points out there was an issue in East Texas, an issue in West Texas and Odessa. Is there a larger infrastructure issue going on in the state?
And obviously, like with what happened in Odessa this past summer, really, we kind of raised some, our reporting kind of looked at aspects of aging infrastructure. In Houston, the mayor, Sylvester Turner, kind of said there were a unique set of circumstances within aspects of transformers blowing out. But, whether it's Zavala in East Texas, there are, issues with aging infrastructure, leaking pipes, vacuum pumps, things like that, are going to be expensive fixes. They aren't easy fixes. And I think we're seeing those, in several places across the state. All
right, Ian, thanks a lot. Back to you in just a moment here. Brand new podcast out this morning about the growing influence of young voters. Used to, you couldn't interest them in politics, but for the third election in a row, they are becoming a lot more influential. An 18-year-old organizer calls us from his dorm room to explain what's changing. That episode out this morning. You can look for Yolitics wherever you get your podcasts. Republican leaders are talking about property tax cuts, as Ian just mentioned there, but the state constitution might limit what they can do. We will talk about that next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ian Mitra is back with us from the Texas Tribune. Bud Kennedy is a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Ashley Godot is an anchor and managing editor of political content at our sister station KVUE in Austin. Ashley, let's start with you. We just saw the two interviews from Celia Israel and from Kirk Watson. What's the word on the street down there? Who has the advantage going into this final week?
Believe it or not, I think we are pretty close going into this election. I think we have a lot of voters in Austin who tend to think that these candidates are pretty similar. They look at it as 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. So they're happy with whichever candidate wins. They don't see much difference. Now, we know the candidates say that's not the case. They believe there are a lot of differences between them, but it's all going to come out to who actually turns out to vote in this runoff. And we know that typically that's your older voters, and it's fewer voters.
And the runoff, Bud, is in December of all times when people are super busy.
People are doing everything else in December. This is the smallest turnout usually of any runoff election in the whole year is this December runoff. It's going to be a very small vote. Usually it's going to be an older vote. What I'm hearing is that this election just comes down to who people identify with the most, who they like the most. Some of these voters are usually older voters. They may like Senator Watson.
Yeah, can't wait to see that debate tomorrow night, Ashley, on KVUE. Starts at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on December the 5th. That's right, 6 o'clock on KVUE in Austin. All right, let's switch off to you and talk about property taxes. It seems the Republican-led legislature addresses this all the time, but now they have a $27 million purse sitting there, surplus from the budget, and state constitutional spending limits are likely to limit how much they might be able to dent our property taxes, it sounds like.
Yeah, $27 billion sounds like a large number, but there's a constitutional spending limit, and it's tied to the state's economic growth, which for this next budget cycle is going to be about $12.5 billion. The governor during his campaign talked about using as much as half of the surplus for property tax cuts, but spending limit concerns would be at play with that number. Now, there are some who say there's a simple majority vote that can override that, but some, including the lieutenant governor, have raised concerns about setting precedents with breaking that spending cap. So others say, because of rising property taxes, that now is the time to kind of consider doing that. So that's kind of the issue at play here with whether to do that or not and where the numbers could end up.
And Bud, are there any other ways around that spending limit for the legislature to address our sky-high property taxes?
Well, Jason, remember the big thing to remember here is that whatever the legislature comes up with, whatever strategy they have, the governor can veto it. We have a governor who probably is not running for president at the time, but still wants to maintain his clout with conservative voters. And, I don't know if he's going to want to ever say that he was governor when they broke the spending cap.
Which way do you expect this to go, Ashley?
No, I think that the Senate is going to find a way to get the lieutenant governor's priorities passed. They tend to always do. Now, whether or not it makes it through the House, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think they are going to come up with some creative legislation to get it done.
And one of the ideas that the lieutenant governor has is to increase the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $60,000. But I want to ask you about the homestead exemption because it's kind of playing a part in the Georgia Senate race. Herschel Walker is still claiming a house in Westlake in Tarrant County that's his homestead, he says, but he's running for Senate 3 states away.
Yeah, it's a homestead exemption. He gets a discount. He doesn't pay $1,200 to the Keller School District or his city tax money because he gets this homestead exemption. I guess the question is, you can take a homestead exemption to leave the state as long as you plan to return. So I guess the question is how quickly he plans to return.
How quickly he might return. Good deal, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Ashley, good to see you again. A quick reminder again, the debate on KVUE is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. You can watch it on KVUE in Austin or see it streamed live at kvue.com. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate that. Thank you for watching as well. We're back again next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Take care.